guys, we have all been waiting for this video. When am I going to be cutting this car up? Well, it happened. Bear in mind, you guys, Chris nor I have ever done any work like this. We have zero bodywork experience, zero experience welding, zero experience cutting up cars. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video, you guys. After all of the content, we'll talk a little bit about what was done to the car, the process we used, and what are the next steps.
Looks pretty damn good. Even if you were to paint that, that would look good, but you're gonna have a little bit more attachment there. See, the only thing I would do differently here is I might take, if I were you, I would just scrape away a little material right there, unless we could bring this out further. Does that have movement in it? Does this come out further if you wanted to?
The
like
skirt?
The bolts? Yeah.
We're gonna have to do we'll have to do body work.
Yeah, this right here to me, I mean, once we attach it maybe, but I feel like we need to go a little more in.
I think that we want to save as much material as possible. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, on the outside, don't you think? Because like we're gonna countersink and then shave away. I'm kind of with you though on this because of this lip right here. Like you sort of get a weird contour.
You'll see it with glossy paint. So this is actually pretty nice. Like once you attach this,
yeah, it's not bad.
This just needs to.
Yeah, and all that's really leaving it out right now is because of that inside fender well that will be cut. If we cut like straight up, like boop, and then just right over that arch, you know, the original arch along there, that I think that that's what we need to do.
Yeah. As far as like drawing the line so we know where the top of this guy is. Just, are you good right there?
Yeah. I think
all right. So draw. This is not a final line. This is a preliminary, so we know how we don't cut past that.
Yeah.
Which we won't get close to that, but I'd rather have something to look at because we do not want to cut past that. Yeah, that's good. That just gives us an idea of, hey, that's way too far.
Yeah.
Like, don't cut past that.
And so what I was thinking is like, if this is the edge, you know, kind of like that.
I would even go like,
because all of this needs to go 100%.
Yeah, I would even go in the middle of all this right here if I were you. Follow the arch, just an inch above the arch the whole way. Mm-hmm. Here and then here, right around here, I would go
down.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, that's good. So slow down here. Let's see where we need to go here.
So, and then like that. Or
I would come
a little more like
I would just exaggerate
like
this. So you're getting into this ledge. You're going.
So maybe bring this down like that, and then like that. Mm-hmm.
But I would, when you're cutting, cut above that line just a little bit because you're still really close to that edge. And here, see how high you are off of the edge here, and then you kind of dipped in. Yeah, that's good. That part's good. But I would just Like if I were you, I would make
higher?
this one. See how you like
yeah,
edge? That's what I follow with my fingers. You want to be like this, and then
a little bit higher
shoot
up.
Down.
This is the edge right here.
I think that's good. That's actually what I would go with.
Yeah.
And then just get that hole. lot better looking. I think we're actually good, man.
I think that when it comes down to it, you just try to hit your edges to make sure that the edges are accurate.
You good?
Yeah, I think
Here looks good.
yeah, it looks good down here. Go for it, dude. Line that shit up. Yeah, I think you just gotta shave away right here, you know? Fiberglass.
Got it. She's in. Try to keep it as on there as you can. Like, don't try to be flattening it. Like, try to just get it in. Yeah. Goop in a hole because it feels like you don't want to make a hole again. That stuff's hard to sand, so you don't want it to roll over where we're sanding. this is gonna be filled, like basically.
Yeah, all of this will be filled.
Yeah.
We just want it flatter.
I want to go flush here, but this I really don't know what to do with yet, right? We flush this
Well,
out,
we don't need to worry about this. This is body shop stuff.
Start the process. Got that Geon prep on there. All pretty good stuff. Now it's going to be putting it on and taking it off. On to at the very end. Should be looking nice and pretty.
All right, so there you guys have it. We have officially completed the job up until this point. However, from here on out, it's going to be the body shop's work that needs to be completed. But I'm gonna give you guys a rundown of exactly what we did, the steps we took, and what is left to do. All right, so first things first, I gotta give a huge shout out to Chris for helping me out. Chris actually has a 135 and he's going through the exact same process as me, using all of the exact same parts. So we kind of wanted to knock mine out first and just get a little bit of experience doing it, and then he's gonna go ahead and start working on his. Nonetheless, as you can see, we have gotten up to to the point where fiberglass is on the car. And structurally, this thing is good. It is super sound, extremely sturdy. And personally for me, all of the structural stuff, that was the stuff that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of cutting the fenders. I wanted to be a part of panel bonding, riveting, and then of course the fiberglass. So the big discussion with this conversion when you run fiberglass flares is people run into issues with the rear flares cracking. What I noticed is a lot of people, when they were doing the bodywork on their cars, they weren't using real fiberglass. They're actually using fiberglass filler, which is almost like it's an epoxy that has fiberglass hairs in it. However, we did legit fiberglass. As you guys saw, we laid down the resin, laid down the mesh, resin, mesh, resin. We ended up doing 3 layers of fiberglass, which should be plenty for this car. You can actually pull on the rear quarter, the flare, and it moves the entire car. It is extremely sturdy. I would be shocked if anything happened down the road with this actually showing a line in it or even cracking at that point. So Chris and I did our fair share of research before jumping into this, but we really wanted to try and tackle it ourselves. This was our first time doing any of the stuff you guys saw in this video. We have never done any of this. I've never cut a quarter panel. He's never welded. That was his first time welding. We've never done body work like this to this extent. We've of course never used fiberglass. So really we did as much research up front as we possibly could. And from there on out, it was just a matter of trying it and figuring it out as we went along. If you are anything like me, I learn by doing. So as you guys saw in the video, talking a little bit about the process, there's obviously quite a few stages to make this happen. The first thing that you obviously have to do is prep everything. Make sure everything is clean. In terms of where you cut, you sort of just have to feel that out. You have to figure it out when you get the flares onto the car. But you guys saw us draw lines, decide where we were going to cut, and then really what it came down to in terms of like the bonding from the fiberglass to the metal, you have to keep in mind that metal and fiberglass, 2 different types of materials, will retract, expand, and heat and cold at different rates. And when that happens, that's when people kind of run into issues with lines being shown or cracking or just that bond not being as strong. So we really wanted to make sure that we tackled everything that we could, and we did everything possible to make sure that we didn't run into that problem in the future. So this was sort of the combination that we came up with. First, you're going to cut, then you're going to weld, then you're going to seam seal so nothing can get into that metal. Now, of course, we will be running a fender liner. I actually have it in the back here, but it's an E92 M3 fender liner. That will be in the rear. We do have to manipulate it a little bit to work, but we won't do that until everything is painted and finished. But after you do the cutting, after you do the welding, after you do the seam sealing, then it's time to shave everything down so you're down to bare metal. And at that point, we used an epoxy called Panel Bond by 3M, which is what a lot of body shops use when they're actually bonding certain materials to the car. And Panel Bond takes about 24 hours to fully set and cure. So basically, we panel bonded the fiberglass to the metal, then we riveted. So the rivets are still in there. We just shaved them down so the contours are nice and smooth. After we let that cure overnight, we then shaved everything down so it was nice and smooth and sort of removed some of the shelf that was between the flare and the metal, just to make that as good as possible. Really, the final forming and the final contouring will be all in the end. The body shop will be handling all of that, but we wanted to get structurally, we wanted to get this car to this point so we knew it was done well and everything would be very, very tight and rigid and firm, and I just didn't run into issues down the road. So after you get through that and you let that set, that's when you're going to go ahead and start putting on your fiberglass, which brings us to where we are now. Also, before we did all the panel bonding and everything, because you do have exposed metal, we used primer so no rust or corrosion could get in between there. So right now there is a little bit of a shelf on the flare itself that's just made out of fiberglass. It probably goes into like right there, and what happens is a lot of guys, when they run these, they don't shave that down, and if they run a super aggressive tire or wheel setup, it hits that and then they crack the flare or they crack their seam right here. All kinds of issues, and I've seen it happen multiple times. So what you have to do is you really have to shave in on the inside. You have to shave in that shelf so you can just run your desired aggressive wheel tire setup. Now, obviously these are not the wheels and tires I'm going to be running on this car when it's finally done, but we will be running a more aggressive wheel and tire setup, so we want to make sure that, you know, we don't run into issues with that rubbing down the road, so we will shave that off too. So what is left for the body shop? Basically, the body shop is going to be handling all of the smoothing this out. This all has to get sanded back down. There's going to be a lot of waves and everything just built up from all of the fiberglass that we use, so all of that is going to get smoothed out. And you can see, I mean, we haven't done any body work, but these line up really, really good. So there isn't really too much issue. Obviously in here, here, all of this is gonna get sanded out. Of course, all this will get sanded down. It's gonna be nice and smooth. I think that where you're going to see a lot of the bodywork happen is kind of the shelf right here from the flare to the quarter panel, because there is quite a big drop. So this is sort of where you will end up using filler like Bondo, and try to use as little Bondo as possible, because really Bondo should just be used for any of the smaller imperfections, but you don't want to obviously use it for like structural stuff, because Bondo can crack over time. It's not as strong as like real fiberglass or even fiberglass filler at that point. So the Bondo will just be like touch-ups, like little things like this, touching that up, making sure it's all nice and smooth, filling in any little pockets. But I didn't want to go past this point, because when I take this to the body shop's going to do all the work and the painting. They will want to shape this their own way, and everyone kind of has their own style when it comes to that. And of course, they're going to have way more experience making this as smooth and as good as possible. So from here on out, it's going to be their job. But I definitely wanted to tackle as much of this as possible myself, and I'm really glad I did, because I learned so much. And down the road, I'm going to have a little bit more experience of doing it again. So you can see here, this is a little bit too far out. That's all going to have to get shaved down to kind of meet the rear bumper a little bit better, but really not too bad. I mean, right out of the box, it's really not too bad. I think it turned out freaking good, man, especially for two guys who have never done this before, have zero experience with bodywork, have zero experience with welding, any of that stuff. I think we did a pretty good job, and that's really what this project has been all about from the beginning. I saw some people in the beginning of this build, when I started buying a lot of like the OEM parts, they were like, well, why don't you just go buy a 1M at this point? The answer to that is very easy, because I wanted to build something. I didn't want to just go buy a 1M. I wanted to be able to challenge myself, and I wanted to learn more about these cars and just bodywork and doing different types of modifications to cars that are sort of out of my comfort zone. So this car, and even in the E92 M3, I've really set out to challenge myself as much as possible. And that's what this build has been all about from the beginning. I don't care about owning a 1M. I don't want a 1M. They're really not even that much different than a 135. But also down the road, there's gonna be some things that I do to this car that I would never want to do to a real 1M, because at that point, you're just devaluing the car. I want to have more fun with these builds. I want to be able to do what I want to do to them without worrying or like tiptoeing around a VIN number. So I think for me personally, it's just more about building a car rather than just buying a car. And that's really just sort of been the whole purpose of this build, and also with the E92 M3. This obviously is a little bit more in depth, because we're changing pretty much everything on the car. But yeah, going over to this side needs a little bit more work than the other side, mainly in the back right here. Now you can see it's sticking out a little bit. Obviously not bad. It's going to be easy for them to fix that. But nonetheless, once it's all finished, it's going to look really good. And I think most importantly, it's going to be really strong. That was my #1 thing when going with the flares over the OEM quarters. These have to be strong. I want to drive this car. I don't want to run into issues. And I know it's possible, because I have friends who have this exact setup and their cars are completely fine, even a couple of guys who track them. So it just comes down to doing it right. And I've also heard the horror stories and seen the horror stories of cars that have not been done right and issues happening later down the road. And I did everything in my power to avoid that with this car. Here we are. Looks really freaking good. I'm very proud of the work we did. I think it's solid. I think I'm only going to get better with time and experience with doing this type of work. And now I'm excited to kind of do more of this type of work on future builds. Just things that are a little bit out of my comfort zone and wheelhouse, and just get better at it and learn. It's so cool to see how wide this car is and how much wheel and tire it's going to be able to eat with these super wide arches in the back. It's hard to tell with this car on camera, but I mean, it's such a short, stubby car that when you widen it like this, it looks extremely wide because of how small it is. So it's really cool to see it in person, just sort of coming to life slowly but surely. So if you have made it this far in this video, thank you so much for watching. It's been a longer one, but this is a long overdue video. I was waiting on these arches for over, I think it was like right around 4 months, so it took a long time to get these. But yeah, I'm happy with my decision. I think this is gonna be the perfect setup for this car. You know, it's not a real 1M. I'm not trying to make it that, and that's kind of why I didn't go the OEM quarter route. I wanted to be able to do this stuff myself, and if I did the OEM quarter, it would be a glass out job. It would be a lot more body work, way more expensive. The quarters alone are $1,500 per side, and they're special order from Germany. There is no telling how long it takes for them to get here. Could be 2 months. Really don't know. And that was straight from BMW. That was what they told me. So that was kind of why I just went for the flares. I was like, we're gonna make it work. I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna do the best that I can, and just enjoy the car. And if worst comes to worst, and let's say that these fail, I don't think they will, but let's say that they do down the road, then at that point we order the OEM quarters. Huge shout out to my buddy Chris for helping out. Literally could not have done this without him. And thank you guys, of course, for watching and being big supporters of the channel. But this build is coming along and we are almost there. We are so close. Next up, it is going to the body shop and it's gonna get painted and it's going to look so freaking good. Just wait till I get those wheels on, dude. This car is going to look mental. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.